I need to tell you something I should have said years ago, something I've known for a long time but stayed quiet about because I told myself it wasn't my place, that people wouldn't listen, that maybe I was wrong, but I wasn't wrong, and every day I stayed silent, the problem got worse, and now we're running out of time. I regret not warning you sooner. I regret not being louder, clearer, more insistent. I regret choosing diplomacy over truth, comfort over alarm, because what I'm about to tell you isn't comfortable. It's not going to make you feel good, but it's real. And if you're watching this, you deserve to know what I've been seeing from where I stand. Before I go deeper, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with yourself. Have you felt it? That growing unease that something fundamental is breaking, that sense that the world you knew is slipping away and something different, something unstable is taking its place. Drop a comment if you felt that shift, because if enough of us admit we feel it, maybe we'll finally stop pretending everything is fine. Here's what I've been watching happen, and what I should have warned you about years ago. The systems we've built, economic, social, political, they're not just flawed, they're breaking. And most people don't see it yet because the collapse isn't loud, it's not dramatic, it's quiet, gradual, and by the time most people notice, it'll be too late to do anything about it. Let me start with what I know best. The economy, the financial system you trust, the one you've been told is stable, the one your retirement depends on, your savings, your future. It's built on a foundation that's been cracking for decades, and I've watched the crack spread. I've seen the warnings. I've sat in rooms with people who know exactly how fragile everything is, and I've heard them laugh it off, kick the problem down the road, assume someone else will fix it later, but there is no later. We're in the later. Here's what they don't tell you. The money in your bank account, it's not real in the way you think it is. It's numbers on a screen backed by trust, by belief, by the collective agreement that those numbers mean something. But what happens when that trust breaks? What happens when people stop believing? I'll tell you what happens because I've studied every major collapse in history. Everything falls apart faster than anyone thought possible. I'm not talking about some distant future scenario. I'm talking about something that could happen in your lifetime, maybe in the next few years, maybe sooner. The signs are everywhere if you know how to read them. The debt levels that can never be repaid, the printing of money that makes everything you own worth less every single day. The widening gap between people who have everything and people who have nothing. The systems that are supposed to protect you, governments, banks, institutions, they're not equipped to handle what's coming. And I knew this. I've known this for years. And I stayed quiet because I told myself it wasn't my responsibility to cause panic. That surely the people in charge would figure it out, that surely someone smarter than me had a plan, but they don't. There is no plan, or if there is, it's not designed to protect you. It's designed to protect the system, even if that means sacrificing the people within it. I should have been screaming about this. I should have used every platform I have to warn you, but I didn't. I built companies. I focused on Mars, on electric cars, on technology. I told myself those things mattered more, and they do matter. But what good is building the future if the present collapses before we get there? Let me tell you what I've seen that keeps me awake at night. I've seen how fragile supply chains are one disruption and entire systems seize up. I've seen how dependent we've become on technology that can fail, on infrastructure that's crumbling, on resources that are finite. I've seen how quickly social order can break down when people feel desperate, when they feel betrayed by the systems they trusted. And here's the part that terrifies me most. I've seen how unwilling people are to face uncomfortable truths, how we'd rather believe comforting lies than confront difficult realities, how we wait until crisis forces our hand instead of acting when we still have choices. I've sat in meetings with world leaders, with the heads of central banks, with people who have access to information most people never see, and you know what I've noticed? They're worried, really worried, but they can't say it publicly because the moment they do, the panic they're trying to avoid becomes inevitable. So they smile, they reassure, they say everything is under control while privately preparing for scenarios that would terrify you, and I participated in that silence. I knew what they knew and I said nothing because I convinced myself that speaking up would only make things worse. That people needed to maintain confidence in the system, that maybe, just maybe, we'd figure it out before things got bad, but we haven't figured it out and things are getting bad. Here's what's happening right now that most people don't see. Your purchasing power is being destroyed, the money you work for, save, plan your life around, it's worth less every day. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because the system requires inflation to function. It requires your wealth to slowly evaporate so that debt can be managed, so that governments can keep spending, so that the illusion of growth can continue. You're being robbed in slow motion, and it's legal. It's policy. It's considered responsible economic management, but the result is the same. You work harder, save more, and still fall further behind. And I've watched this happen while saying nothing, while focusing on my companies, while telling myself it wasn't my problem to solve, but it is my problem, because I have children who will inherit this mess, because I have employees whose futures depend on a stable system, because I'm a human being living in a society that's racing toward a cliff, and staying quiet makes me complicit. So let me tell you what I should have told you years ago. The comfortable life you think is guaranteed, it's not. The stability you assume will always be. There, it won't. The systems you trust to protect you, your government, your bank, your job, your retirement, they're more fragile than you've been led to believe, and I'm not saying this to scare you, though you should be concerned. I'm saying it because you need to prepare, you need to understand what's happening so you can make different choices. So you can protect yourself and the people you love. So you're not caught completely unprepared when things change, because things are going to change. The only question is whether you see it coming or whether it hits you blind. I've spent years building companies that I hope will help electric vehicles to reduce dependence on oil, solar energy to decentralize power, space technology, to give humanity a backup plan. But those are long-term solutions to long-term problems. The short-term crisis is here now, and I should have been warning you about it instead of just quietly working on my projects. Let me be specific about what I'm seeing that you need to understand. The debt, government debt, corporate debt, consumer debt, it's at levels that can never be repaid in real terms. The only way out is inflation, which means making your money worth less so the debt is easier to service. You're going to pay for this. You already are. Every time prices go up, every time your paycheck doesn't stretch as far, that's you paying the cost of a system that's fundamentally broken. The social fabric is tearing. I've watched communities fragment, watched people stop trusting each other, stop trusting institutions, stop believing in shared purpose. When times get hard, and they will, that lack of cohesion is dangerous. When people don't trust their neighbors, their government, their systems, societies become unstable very quickly. The centralization of power is accelerating. Fewer people control more resources, more wealth, more influence, and concentrated power, no matter how well-intentioned, is always vulnerable to abuse. I've seen up close how policy gets made, how decisions that affect millions of people get made by small groups in closed rooms. And most of those decisions aren't made with your interests in mind. And here's what I should have shouted from every platform I have. You need to become more self-reliant. You need to depend less on systems that can fail and more on skills, relationships, and resources you can control. You need to understand what's happening so you can make informed choices about your money, your career, your life. I'm not telling you to panic. Panic is useless. I'm telling you to prepare, to think seriously about what happens if the systems you depend on stop working the way they are supposed to. What's your plan if your money suddenly buys half what it does today? What's your plan if supply chains break down? What's your plan if the job market collapses? These aren't hypothetical questions anymore. These are scenarios we need to think about seriously, and I should have been pushing you to think about them years ago instead of assuming someone else would handle it. I know what some of you are thinking. Elon, you're rich. This doesn't affect you the way it affects us, and you're right. I have resources most people don't, but that doesn't make me immune to what's coming. My companies depend on stable systems. My children will live in whatever world we create or fail to create. And beyond that, I actually care about what happens to civilization, even if my track record of speaking up suggests otherwise. So here's what I'm asking you to do. What I should have asked you to do years ago. Educate yourself about how the financial system actually works. Not how you were taught it works in school, but how it actually functions. Understand inflation. Understand debt. Understand why your purchasing power keeps declining no matter how hard you work. Diversify what you depend on. Don't put all your trust in one currency, one system, one country, one job. The more dependent you are on any single point of failure, the more vulnerable you are when that system breaks. Build real skills. Learn to create value that doesn't depend on a paycheck from a job that could disappear. Learn to fix things, build things, grow things. The more self-reliant you are, the better you'll weather what's coming. Strengthen your community. I know we're all atomized, isolated, locked into screens instead of connected. Two neighbors, but when systems fail, community is what saves people. Real relationships with real people who actually know you and can help you. Stop assuming someone else will fix this. The politicians aren't going to fix it. They benefit from the current system. The banks aren't going to fix it. They're making money from it. The wealthy aren't going to fix it. Most of them are insulated from the consequences. If anything changes, it's because regular people understand what's happening and make different choices. I know this is heavy. I know you didn't click on this expecting to hear that everything is more fragile than you thought, but I owe you the truth, even if it's uncomfortable, especially if it's uncomfortable. I regret not warning you sooner. I regret every year I stayed quiet while watching the crack spread. I regret prioritizing comfort over honesty, my reputation over your awareness. But I'm speaking now because there's still time, not much, but some, to prepare, to adjust, to make different choices. The systems are breaking. You need to know that. You need to feel the urgency of that, not so you panic, but so you act, so you make decisions based on reality instead of assumptions. So you're not the person who looks back and says, "Why didn't anyone tell me?" I'm telling you right now, the world you've known is changing. The stability you've assumed is not guaranteed. The future is more uncertain than most people realize. And the time to prepare is now, while you still can, while there are still choices to make. I should have said this years ago. I didn't, and I'll carry that regret. But maybe if you're hearing this, if you're taking this seriously, if you're starting to prepare, maybe it's not too late to make a difference for yourself and the people you love. Don't wait until the crisis is obvious to everyone. By then, it'll be too late to do anything except survive the consequences. Act now, prepare now, understand. Now, because I regret not warning you sooner, don't make me regret that you didn't listen when I finally did. Look, I know how this sounds. I know it feels heavy, maybe even overwhelming. You came here expecting something different, maybe something lighter, and instead I'm telling you the world is more fragile than you thought. I get it. Part of you wants to dismiss this, wants to believe I'm exaggerating, wants to go back to feeling secure in the systems you've trusted. Your whole life. But I need you to sit with the discomfort for a moment, because that discomfort, that's your instinct recognizing truth even when your mind wants to reject it. You felt it already that something is off, that the rules are changing, that the future doesn't look like what you were promised. I'm not planting that feeling, I'm just naming it. I'm just confirming what part of you already knows. Here's what I didn't say clearly enough earlier. This isn't about doom. This isn't about giving up or hiding under a rock or assuming the worst. This is about waking up. This is about seeing clearly so you can act intelligently. Because the people who survive major transitions aren't the ones who pretend nothing is wrong. They're the ones who see change coming and adapt before they're forced to. Let me tell you what happened to me personally that made this so clear. A few years ago, I was in a meeting with some of the smartest economists I've ever met. People with access to data most people never see, people who advise governments and central banks, and I asked them point blank, "What's your honest assessment? How stable is this?" The room went quiet, and then one of them, someone whose name you'd recognize if I said it, looked at me and said, "Elon, the system runs on confidence. The moment enough people question it, it falls apart, so we can't tell them the truth. We have to maintain the illusion until we figure out a solution." And I sat there thinking, but what if you don't figure out a solution? What if the problem is too big, too structural, too baked into the system to fix? What happens to all the people who trusted the illusion? That's when I realized they're not going to save you. Not because they're evil or malicious, but because they're trapped in a system that requires them to maintain confidence, even when that confidence isn't warranted. They can't tell the truth without triggering the collapse they're trying to prevent, so they smile and reassure and hope that somehow, miraculously, things work out. But hope is not a strategy, and waiting for someone else to fix problems this big is delusional. Here's what keeps me up at night. Now I think about all the regular people. Hardworking, responsible people who did everything right who are going to get destroyed by this. People who saved diligently in a currency that's being devalued. People who invested in retirement plans that assume stable returns. People who built their lives around jobs and industries that could disappear when the system shifts. People who trusted the experts and the institutions and played by the rules only to discover the rules were rigged against them the whole time. And I think I could have warned them. I had the platform, I had the credibility, I had the information, and I chose comfort over courage. I chose not to be the bearer of bad news. I chose to focus on my projects instead of speaking uncomfortable truths. That's the regret I'm living with, and I'm trying to make up for it now, even though it might be late, even though some of you won't believe me, even though speaking up now might cost me relationships with powerful people who prefer the comfortable lies. But here's what I need you to understand. I'm not speaking up because I want to scare you. I'm speaking up because I care what happens next. Because I have kids who will inherit whatever world we create or fail to create. Because I've spent my whole adult life building things that I hope make the future better, and all of that is meaningless if the foundation collapses. So let me get even more specific about what I'm seeing and what you need to know. I know some of you think I'm being dramatic, that I'm catastrophizing, that surely things can't be as bad as I'm suggesting, and I genuinely hope you're right. I hope I'm wrong about all of this. I hope the systems hold together. Hope the smart people figure it out. Hope we muddle through without major disruption. But I can't bet my family's future on hope, and you shouldn't either. Because if I'm wrong, the worst that happens is you're more prepared than you needed to be. You're more skilled, more diversified, more resilient. But if I'm right and you ignored this warning, the consequences could be devastating. That is why I am speaking up now, despite knowing some people will think I have lost my mind, despite knowing this could damage relationships, hurt my reputation, make me a target, because staying quiet to protect myself while watching people sleepwalk into crisis is cowardice, and I've been a coward on this issue for too long. So here's my final ask: take this seriously. Not hysterically, not with panic, but with appropriate urgency. Think about what I've said. Look at the evidence yourself. Make your own assessment. But don't just dismiss this because it is uncomfortable or because accepting it would mean changing how you live. Because the biggest mistake you can make right now is assuming everything will be fine because it always has been. That's not how history works. Stable periods end, systems break, and the people who see change coming and prepare are the ones who make it through. I regret not telling you this sooner. I regret every year of silence, but I'm telling you now, and what you do with this information is up to you. Just don't make me regret that I finally spoke up and you chose not to listen. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's still operating like the old rules apply, someone who needs to wake up to what's actually happening. Subscribe if you want more honest conversations about what is really going on and what you can actually do about it. And tell me what's one thing you're going to do differently after watching this. What's one step you're taking to prepare for a more uncertain future? Write it in the comments. Make it real by saying it out loud because awareness without action is just anxiety. Turn this warning into preparation.